I'm joined in studio with Leah Siskind. I hope I pronounced your name properly, unless I was in the ballpark. She's the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Artificial Intelligence Research Fellow. And I really wanted her to come in because we're seeing some stories now. And look, I wrote a book. It's called They're Coming for You. And it's talking about how technology, data, is going to be leveraged against people. And where we're going and the technology that's already here today is being used for nefarious purposes. And one of those is playing out in real time right now. We're seeing this story of Marco Rubio, right? Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, he's got like 4 hats. He's National Security Advisor. He's running the archives. He's just like doing everything. So, but Marco Rubio, there's evidently somebody out there using artificial intelligence and contacting other government officials saying, hey, this is Marco, and having conversations with them. This is scary stuff, Leah.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Where are we going in this world?
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head. Technology is here, and it definitely can be manipulated and used in very dangerous ways. What we're seeing right now is really the new frontier of influence operations. So what we learned yesterday, an internal State Department cable announced that there had been deepfake voice recordings and text messages sent by an imposter pretending to be Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Yeah. They were sent to multiple heads of state, a governor, and a member of Congress. At this point, we don't know much else. We don't know who those heads of state were, but you can imagine, you can easily wrap your head around the gravity of this situation, how serious it is, and how effective this technology is at manipulating diplomacy.
Yeah, look, I was with Marco Rubio yesterday. I physically, I didn't poke him like in the shoulder to say, hey, Marco, is that really you? But, he's got a very distinctive voice. If you're ever on the phone with him, which I have, then you know exactly that it's Marco. But if it's a deep fake, now this also affects real people. Not that Marco's a fake person, but not many people get to interact with him unless you're another Secretary of State or a head of state or, like a member of Congress. But, if you live in Louisiana or you live in Colorado this is going to start happening in mass. Absolutely. How do we deal with it?
Absolutely. And one of the things that worries me is that finding deepfakes of very high-level senior officials, those are almost easier to out because we can we can verify and validate soon enough that whether they came from that person. But what I'm more concerned about is what about lower-level officials? What about undersecretaries of state that don't have that same profile, that same level of recognition? How long?
Well, what about that teenager? I mean, President Trump in the joint session of Congress highlighted this teenager. This poor young lady had a deep fake, a nude photo of somebody, and they put her head on it, and then they were passing it around, and she was terribly embarrassed. And how do you put that genie back in the bottle? And then imagine the bullying and the other devastation for a fragile young person who wakes up one day and 100, 300 people at the high school think they've seen a nude picture of you.
No, deepfakes it's a whole new level of abuse and manipulation, and I'm glad that the administration is taking it so seriously. But to your point about how do we start to understand how these are being created and how they're proliferating, deepfake videos have been around. We have seen them. They are very complex to do well. It's pretty easy to see kind of a scrappily done
Instagram
video.
Something with a cat down jumping around doing a dance.
Or but even
that cat on the diving board, I got to tell you, I think that was actually real.
that was pretty amazing. I have to admit, I watched that myself.
Yes.
But deepfake audio is so much easier. This is the true low-hanging fruit here because video requires so many inputs. It requires a pretty sophisticated understanding of and use of technology. Deepfake audio can be done extremely well with about 30 seconds of recorded audio of a person.
Really?
You can use AI tools to model our audio recording, and from that you can start to map tone, inflection, emotion, pitch, accent, speech patterns. All you need is 30 seconds of audio.
Wow.
And there are tools that are online, they're free, they're pretty user-friendly that just about anyone could use to put together a deepfake audio recording.
Okay, so how do you defend against it? What is there a role in Congress that should be done? But Congress is notoriously slow. So you're the average person, or you think that somebody might be impersonating you. Do you have to come up with safe words or code words, if you will, to say that, look, you'll know it's me if I use this word, and then you let your family know? I mean, what do you do? This
is like any other area of cyber defense. We have to have protocols and we have to have a playbook. So first of all, I know that the administration seems very comfortable using consumer-grade communication apps like Signal. I use Signal. I love Signal. I understand. Right. But the problem is they are encrypted. That means they protect the comms, but they're not verifying the identity of the person using them. So people need to know what they're doing when they use them, that they're not truly safe. So if you're going to be sending sensitive information, they need to use kind of formal channels of communication. Also, our ability to detect these fakes, especially with audio, when we don't have as many points of information to kind of suss out whether it's real or not, a lot is going to have to be based on the context. So if you get a message like the one sent from Secretary Rubio, which, by the way, were created just spoofing an account. They just created marco.rubio@state.gov on Signal. Anyone could create a fake account like that. I think you need to focus on the context. If you are getting a sudden ask for quick action, taking a minute to say, this seems maybe out of character, or this is maybe unlike this person, I'm going to take a moment to confirm by saying, this sounds important. Why don't we switch to a high side communication?
Or why don't I call you back, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there was one time where I went to one of our national labs, and the national laboratories do some really sensitive, highly classified information. And I remember asking him, and I said, how do we deal with this? We were talking about piracy, like how do we, the movie industry and the music industry suffers from this all the time, pirated copies. So I said, well, what do we do about it? And they said, analog. Analog is the way to do it. But how do we do that in today's society?
Yeah, it's hard because you have to weigh convenience and the ability to work quickly with security. That's always going to be the rub. But another important thing to focus on is whoever this imposter was knew the acronyms, knew the lingo. They were able to really accurately represent a State Department official. And one area of major vulnerability for all government agencies is just good old-fashioned phishing attacks where people are trying to manipulate you and get you to click on a link and get exposed to malware and then use that to glean information about your agency. So just reinforcing basic trainings of how to detect phishing attacks and how to prevent them in your agency is an important step one.
PHISHING. Phishing. If you don't know what it is, you also worry about, grandma, right? The hypothetical but real grandma who's out there. This technology is moving so fast. It's so new. They're just figuring out how to use FaceTime. And next thing you know, they're going to get a message that sounds exactly like Junior.
It's true.
And they're going to say, hey, your son's been kidnapped, or he's in a car accident, or he's, you need to. And you're right. There is the common sense that says, hey, if you're getting something that's dramatic, but we had some really demented people who contacted in somebody's voice saying, Mom, or whatever it was, I desperately need this. Or this person's been killed. In one case, I remember reading a story about, imagine the devastation and the change in your heartbeat that's going on. But it was fake.
I know.
It wasn't real.
I know real world examples of all the things you're talking about, of grandmas being preyed upon and asked to quickly transfer money. This isn't a matter of ignorance or internet savvy. Anyone can fall prey to this.
Is it using apps like Authy and those types of things with a dual authenticator? How do we, I mean, where is this going? Because it just seems like the nefarious are 2 steps ahead of where others want to go. And, you know, again, in my book, they're coming for you. My worry is that the government is buying and selling this data in mass. Data brokers are able to garner so much information about you. Most people are just oblivious to it. I think they look at it. The premise of this they're coming for you book is, yeah, people want to trade convenience. Or they trade some personal information for convenience, but they have no idea in mass how it's spreading and being used to push people out of the economy, debanking, social credit scores, just used in the voting schemes. There's all kinds of these things going on that I think most people are oblivious to. So, but the bigger question I think is somebody's going to get mega rich by figuring out how to create something that's verifiable. You're right. Signal's a really good example. I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, it's encrypted, but how do you verify?
That's exactly who you're talking to.
Yeah.
You're hitting on so many good points.
Especially if you can do artificial intelligence with their face.
Exactly. And all the points that you made about big data and learning, consumer behavior, building up profiles of people and their interests and their likes, and AI just is an absolute force multiplier for kind of every nefarious use of that data before. Right. Now we can kind of do that on steroids. So it just becomes a lot easier. And you also mentioned all the different ways that we're seeing deepfakes, and whether it's preying on people or trying just for financial gain or for access to information. We absolutely see it in the political realm as well. Like leading up to the 2024 election, there were robocalls, fake audio recordings of then President Biden that were disseminated, encouraging people not to vote in the New Hampshire primary. Yeah. So we can do our best to debunk these things quickly, but you have to wonder, how long are they going to go? Now, that's something extremely high profile. That is going to be detected and debunked pretty fast. But with the situation with the State Department, what's so concerning to me is how long did these messages go undetected? How much damage could they have? And we know that diplomacy is entirely based on trust and communication. So the wrong word, a word used incorrectly, could potentially derail negotiations that are months in the making, or destabilize a fragile relationship, or worse, even set up some sort of diplomatic crisis.
Or if somebody responds and provides classified or highly sensitive materials, that who knows where it can go to. Look, I could talk to you all day about this. It's obviously of keen interest. Leah Siskind, right? Did I pronounce it right?
You did indeed. Yes, thank you so much.
Foundation for Defense of Democracies. You do great work. You got your mind wrapped around. You are going to be perpetually employed, because if you're looking into this stuff and understanding it, you're going to be a very valuable employee. So whatever you do in whatever. So thanks so much for joining us on the Brian Kilmeade Show.